Alright guys, welcome back to my channel, and today, as seen from the thumbnail, you guessed it, another Evolution Diamond video. But this time around, I want to do something slightly different. I wasn't too happy with the last one. I think in the way I explained it wasn't really well defined, so I'm gonna change the format, and instead of explaining my choices on why I evolved them, I'm just gonna review them all together, like a proper card review. Card review? Fighter review. Okay, let's just quickly start, and of course the first one is the fire element, and I am evolving Dead Heat. Okay, Dead Heat, why? Well, I don't have a good reason, and she's not really a great fighter to evolve to Diamond either, mostly because her signature ability doesn't really do much, so I'm guessing as a fire variant she's mostly meant to be used on offense. But as you know, Squiggly's attack stat in general is much lower than the other characters. She's more oriented towards defense. She has a higher HP stat than her attack stat. So, Dead Heat, while she may have the highest attack stat of all the silver Squigglies, it's still at 8.7k maximum at Diamond. And it places her around the same range as Bio Exorcist, which is at 8.8k. But it still pales to comparison against other characters. So how do we make a great offensive Squiggly? Well, based on the examples of the Squiggly variants we have so far, there's really two ways to do about it. The first way is to give her a signature ability that doesn't really care about the attack stat and can get rid of your opponent's HP easily. And we see this in Bio Exorcist, Thrill Shrieker, and Lovecrafted, and of course our newest one, Gangrene. These fighters don't care about their attack stat. You can deal a lot of damage or flat out cuts your opponent's HP by half by filling certain conditions. And the second method is of course through a lot of damage multipliers to make up for her lower than average attack stat, and we see this easily in Poltergust and to some extent Plot Twisted. Now let's go back to Dead Heat, and as you can see, she does none of this. Her first signature ability allows for unblockable blockbusters and special moves, which is pretty cool, but it requires her to be near death at 25% health, which is not okay. Her second signature ability complements her first by getting meter essentially for free really easily, which is pretty good. I think that part of her signature ability is fine, but again, her first signature ability is her main drawback. It works defensively, but as a fire variant, she doesn't even have any defensive output to offer. And for those above mentioned reasons, Dead Heat is not a great fighter to evolve to Diamond. Next is Water Element, and I'm really excited for this one because it's no other than No Egrets. So No Egrets is a really cool Parasol because I think she has one of the highest attack stat for the silver Parasols. I think she caps out at like around 9k or like almost 10k attack, which is pretty acceptable considering that Parasol has a pretty good marquee ability to increase her damage. Her signature ability is really simple. On critical hit, she just inflicts tons of debuffs to disable your opponent, which is really good. Now some people may say, why do you have crit mass on her? Because she works by critical hit, and critical thinking might be the superior marquee ability. Well, I chose Critical Mass because I've got a really good moveset for Parasol, which gives me a 100% crit rate, so I don't need more crit rate. And another reason is because even if you don't have a 100% crit rate, there are other ways to increase your crit rate really easily. And one of them is through bringing a Shelter support, which gives 20% crit rate off the bat. And another way is to make use of Precision by bringing Egret Call. So Precision is a buff that guarantees critical hit, and Parasol has a Taunt Egret Call that gives you up to 3 stacks of precision, which is really powerful. And then there's also Silent Scope, and if you read the ability for Silent Scope, it's a one-hit blockbuster with an increased chance of a critical hit. So there are ways to increase your critical hit rate without relying on your tiers or marquee ability. So I feel it's always better to bring something which is Critical Mass that can increase your damage where you cannot get that from anywhere else, aside from moves of course. So back again to No Egrets, I think her main strength is in her simplicity. She's one of the few Parasol variants that can do some meter control, the other being Ivy League. But unlike Ivy League, the condition to activate her ability is just super duper simple. You just need to land a critical hit, and you're disabling the opponent's blockbuster, special move, and tag in. and the more critical hit you invest in her, well, your opponent is never gonna use their blockbuster ever again. So third one is Air, and I'm quite excited about this variant as well. It's none other than Nonsense. Now Nonsense is one of the few bronze variants that I feel like is worth diamond. Her ability is really simple. She gains 3 buffs for every buff the opponent gets, and this is really powerful against opponents like Frost Armor Nodes that can gain armor really easily. And since buffs are inherently usually defensive, you can easily roll Invincible, Final Stand, Immunity, Regen, Blessings, and a lot of those buffs that will keep Nonsense alive, so her base stats as a bronze doesn't even matter. And in the offensive department, every double has access to the Chaos Marquee ability, which is really powerful. So she is the perfect counter to Frost Armor Nodes. You don't need to transmute at all, you can just start hitting them and start inflicting massive debuffs, and if they gain armor, you gain a lot of buffs in as well. Her second signature ability is more of a bonus. You can inflict 3 debuffs for every debuff you get. So this usually will come from like modifiers or Rift Catalyst like Super Slow-Mo that will give you a debuff every second or so. And by doing so, you're pretty much reflecting back the debuffs to your opponent, 3 of them, which makes it easier to wear down your opponent in addition to Chaos. So overall, you can consider Nonsense as a niche variant, but in that niche, she is very powerful. And against certain opponents, especially those that gain armor, like Frost Armor Nodes in Rift, or the Water Elemental prize fight, she absolutely kills it. And being a double significantly allows her to hit hard by inflicting massive amount of debuffs. I'm quite excited to have Nonsense as another Frost Armor counter. Next is Light Element, and I'm also excited to evolve this variant because I finally got her after a year of playing, and she is none other than Last Hope. Now Last Hope is a really good defender, and her Light Element significantly adds on to that as well through the Catalyst, Last Words, and Lightweight. And what makes Last Hope really good is that she has an inherent ability to resurrect 50%. So while her max HP is around 67k, which is just slightly below Brain Freeze, you're essentially facing Last Hope with 150% health, which translates to about 100k health without any bonus stats from moves. And her other signature ability allows her and her teammates to gain heavy regen when they're in a pinch, which is overall really great. So there's nothing much else to say. She's just a passive tank that takes longer to kill. And of course, ICU is the recommended marquee ability to gain heavy regen whenever she gets inflicted with a debuff. So overall, Last Hope is a solid defender. Without the right tools, you can potentially time out when against her. Although she does see less play in higher ranks as people favor Assassin's Creed more for their light nodes, nonetheless, Last Hope is still a very solid pick for your defense team. Alright, so now we finally reached the final element, which is Dark, and I've been holding off evolving this variant for a really long time because she's kind of a meme, Raw Nerve. Now here's the problem with Raw Nerve. She's only scary if you cannot block and get hit by her. Her signature abilities grants her permanent buffs while also inflicting a permanent debuff to increase her damage, but she doesn't really have any other defensive output aside from that. So she'll be relying on her Marquee ability as well as the Catalyst, Don't Poke the Bear, and possibly her Dark Element as well, Dark Nut. But outside of that, her signature ability really doesn't have anything else to offer as long as you can block well and not get hit. Another problem is the health threshold with her signature ability as a condition. I feel like it needs to get higher. 50 and 25% is quite low. 50% is still acceptable, but it would be better if it was like 70%, and 25% is just too low, especially since Pain Wheels generally have low health points. If they get buffed to 75 and 50% respectively, I think that would be much better, but I still won't see her getting played at all simply because Deathmark doesn't really do anything if you can block. So I had an idea, why not include Guard Break in her kit? It's an idea, but I think it will make her much more viable. And also Threatening, which I believe suits Pain Wheels a lot, since they are supposed to be glass cannon characters with high attack, I think defensively, they should reflect that as being something really scary that you don't want to get hit. And guard break provides that little pressure, which I think is needed. Anyway, those are all the variants that have evolved, and here's a little recap, and thank you as always for watching. Hope you all have a nice day, and see you next week.